to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go.
I know everybody's probably saying, hey, wait, where's Matt? Well, Matt's doing some other stuff today. So, hi everybody, I'm Jen Peeples. I'll be your host today for this episode of the Atheist Experience. It is Sunday, January 18th, and with me today is John Iacoletti.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Good?
We haven't been on a show together yet, so this is cool.
I know, it's the first time. So the Atheist Experience is a live call-in TV show sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And we have a number of events throughout the week, including a web radio show, The Nonprofits, our lecture series at the Austin History Museum, which actually happened today. And of course we have other Sunday activities, including a regular Sunday brunch on every weekend that we don't have the lecture. And also a post-show dinner at El Arroyo. If you're in the Austin area, you're welcome to join us for any of those events. And also don't forget we have the Texas Secular Convention coming up at the end of February. It's running February 27th through March 1st, I believe. Okay, that's going to be here in Austin.
And we're co-sponsoring that, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes we are. And also, ACA membership year expires at the end of February, so renewal time is just around the corner. If you're an ACA member or you would like to be, now would be a good time. And you can find out more about our activities by visiting our website at www.atheist-community.org. And I believe you have a topic today, right?
I do. It's not of much consequence. It's a little quick topic that came along with the new year. There's some weird shit that comes across my Facebook feed sometimes, like Carrie Underwood, atheists are furious that Carrie Underwood's new song is about Jesus, to which my response was, name one.
Yeah.
Or I saw this picture, this elaborate sandcastle, you know, like in the sandcastle contest, and it said, and the caption says, atheists think that this formed randomly with the wind blowing over millions of years, to which my response was, name one.
Yeah.
But this article came across, it comes from Salon.com from January 1st. The title is, I Get It, You're an Atheist, You Should Still Capitalize God. So that caught my eye because I generally don't capitalize God, and I'm kind of compulsive about grammar. So I read this article, and basically it's by Richard Eskow. And the little pull quote says, using lowercase God is like Fox News hack saying Democrat Party. It shows dumb disrespect to others and grammar. Which, you know, I think this is, first of all, kind of a strange thing to get bent out of shape about. I think Democrat Party is a strange thing to get bent out of shape about as well, especially to write an entire article about it. But his argument basically is God is a proper name. You would capitalize Tinkerbell, even though we kind of all agree Tinkerbell is fictional. So you should capitalize God.
Of course, how arrogant do you have to be to name your particular deity God, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of my points is God is a generic term. And yeah, I even wrote down rather arrogant for some people to claim their God is the one and only God, named God. We have a little dog at home, and the name that was given to her by her human captors is Pepper. Mm-hmm. And so I would capitalize Pepper because to distinguish her from the substance Pepper. Mm-hmm. But every once in a while, I'll call her Dog. I'll say, hey dog, come over here dog. What's going on dog? And if I were for some strange reason to write that down, I wouldn't capitalize dog because she's a dog. Her name isn't Dog. I think that's the same way with God. It's not a proper name. And I would capitalize Yahweh. I would capitalize Zeus or Thor or Odin or even Flying Spaghetti Monster. But I think God isn't really a proper name. I generally will just avoid the whole thing by referring to it as the Christian God or
your God.
Or your God,
Yeah.
or God or gods,
Yeah.
to make it a generic term. But I think to say that it's disrespectful and it's bad grammar isn't really true.
Well, and if it is disrespectful, so what?
Yeah,
I mean, unlike the Pope, I think it is actually perfectly okay to criticize someone's religious beliefs. Obviously.
yeah.
But
So, when I do it, it's not to show disrespect, but I kind of question the whole premise. We're going to name our God as if that's the God, and you
Yeah.
better capitalize it, or you're being disrespectful and hateful. I don't buy it.
and we're going to punch you in the face or something.
Yes. So that's my little rant, and there's some other more consequential stuff happening in the news, but I thought after last week's Charlie Hebdo thing, which was pretty heavy, I thought maybe we'd lighten it up a little bit today. So
Yeah. Well, and there's actually some good news in the news front, which is, well, I guess depending on how you think the court's going to rule, but the Supreme Court has actually agreed to hear the marriage equality case.
yeah, that's big news.
So the circuit courts have split, and now the Supreme Court has decided that it has to weigh in on this. So I guess they're going to hear arguments in April, and so we should have a decision this summer. We're going to find out if marriage equality is a piecemeal thing throughout the country, as it currently is, or if we're going to have marriage equality as a law of the land. And as it stands right now, marriage equality is a reality for 36 states. There's only 14 that are holding out, vainly clinging to the 19th century. So we'll see if we can drag them into the 21st century with this.
And I liken that to 1967 when the Supreme Court heard a case on interracial marriage.
Right, the
And,
Loving v. Virginia
You
case,
heard a lot of the same arguments, that it was unnatural, and the Supreme Court said nonsense. So let's hope that they have the same wisdom now.
Yeah. All right. Well, my screen went away here. So,
So that's
ready
it.
to go to calls?
Yeah, let's
All
go
right.
ahead.
So let's go to calls. Let's see. We have. Looks like we have Mark in Canada. So, hi, Mark.
Hi, how's it going? Jen,
Yes.
how are you today?
Good.
Yeah, as you know, my name is Mark. I'm an admitted Christian creationist, believe in a higher being that created everything. So I'm calling today because I have a question for atheists about their fundamental beliefs. Now, from what I've read and understand, you guys believe that anything that cannot be proved through observation of the traditional five senses, sight, hearing, touch, sound, smell, and taste, if you can't observe it through the five senses, then it's not real and it doesn't exist, correct?
Where did you get that?
This is what I've read about atheist philosophy and what I've heard of a number of atheists.
That's not an atheist philosophy.
Yeah, I think first of all you should understand that atheist just means you don't believe in God, period. It doesn't say...
No, I know, but how do you determine if something is scientifically real or if it's just imagined? How do you determine if it exists or not? That's what I'm saying. I read that how science determines if something exists or not is by the five traditional senses of sight, touch, smell, sound, and...
We have many more ways besides human senses to determine if things are real or not.
Okay, but... do you believe that humans only have five senses to determine, perceive things?
Why is that even relevant? Where are you going with this? What question do you really want to ask?
Well, that is the logical fallacy that I find with atheism, because you believe in evolution, yet you don't believe that we could develop more than five senses of perception to perceive our reality.
Well, I think that if you actually understand what science does, we've actually extended our ability to perceive things by using instruments
intellectually, I understand that.
Okay,
But
you understand that we
I'm
can
talking
detect
about-
things that humans can't perceive with five senses, right?
yeah, using technological devices.
Right.
So you're asking a question about the scientific method, not about atheism. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I'm asking about the scientific method, but I'm asking about atheism because atheism believes and follows what they follow because they follow whatever science has proven to be fact, and anything outside of that...
No, that's not what
they deem as-
atheism doesn't believe anything. Atheism is a response to a specific claim.
Well, so that's what I mean. You don't step out of what is known. You make all of your decisions about your life based on what is known fact.
No.
No?
No, we're not claiming knowledge about whether or not a God exists. What we're saying is that we don't believe that a God exists because no one's been able to demonstrate to our satisfaction that such a thing exists.
If you could provide evidence that doesn't rely on five senses, I'm not sure what that would look like, but basically we don't believe something for which there is no evidence. So if you came up with some evidence that would satisfy that question that was not related to the five senses, then we'd be glad to hear it.
Okay, well, that's good because do you agree that one of the 12 constants in our universe is electrical magnetic fields?
Again, I have no idea where this is going, but okay, for the sake of argument, let's agree to that. Where are you going with that?
Yeah, we do live, we basically live on a supergiant magnet floating through space orbiting the sun, right?
Okay.
And we are all
We're not
basically-
cosmologists either, so...
Yeah, your point would be?
And we're all basically walking electrical magnetic field, right?
Okay, where are you going with this? Are you a
Where am I
cosmologist?
going with this? I'm going with this that maybe the reason that you have not ever been able to perceive the existence of God is because it requires a sixth sense development.
Or
And only
maybe
perceive.
maybe your God doesn't exist?
Then I know citing names is not enough to be proof, but hey, there's some really amazing people from history who did believe in God. Isaac Newton, Thomas Edison,
Yeah,
Armstrong.
it's possible to be really intelligent and still believe in a God.
And Abraham Lincoln, do you know he abolished slavery in USA based on
Again,
an
it's
argument?
possible to be really intelligent and still be wrong about that issue.
It doesn't mean their
I
belief in
know,
God
but
was...
he used the God argument to abolish slavery.
Well, they used the God argument to justify slavery
Yeah.
for years too, so I don't think that's all that relevant. I think scientists can believe in God and not believe in God for scientific reasons. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
So,
Okay.
so you claim to have a sixth sense for perceiving God. So what is that like? How is it that you perceive God, and how does this sense manifest?
What is the sixth sense? Well, I already gave you a hint. We live on a supergiant electrical magnet, and we are all electrical magnetic fields. All life forms are emitting electrical magnetic fields. So I don't know, is it not logical to assume that sixth sense would be the ability to detect electrical magnetic fields?
And so you think that we're atheists because we don't have the ability to detect electromagnetic fields?
I'm saying that is the very essence and sense of how you detect and sense the presence of God. It is a presence. Electromagnetic field is a presence. It's not something you can see, feel, hear, touch, or smell, or taste, but it is a presence.
Okay, but we have detectors that can actually detect electromagnetic fields.
Actually, you do, and I'm glad you mentioned that. You ever seen the show Paranormal Witness, where they take electrical detection devices into so-called places where there's been spiritual activity and things are going off the gauge, and they're like, we can't say exactly what happened here. All we know is there's stuff that's tripping our equipment.
And, when you come up with something that you can't say exactly what's happening there, the correct answer is, I don't know what's going on.
There's a presence that's tripping their equipment.
Well, no, it's not to make the assertion that there's some presence there that's making their equipment go crazy.
What's making their equipment go crazy then?
Well, we don't know. But claiming that it must be a God is not justified. And you do know that those shows are nonsense, right? That stuff is all scripted and...
Yeah, some of them are, but, so I've seen some real factual ones where they do act real.
How do you tell the ones that are scripted from the factual ones?
And expose the hoax of it, not make a hoax out of it.
Okay, so how do you tell which ones are scripted and which ones are factual? I'm just curious about what your method is.
I don't, but I'm just saying that I see that on both sides, the ones that try to make a hoax and the ones that try to discredit and debunk the hoax even come back and say, hey, we can't explain this, but there's stuff tripping our equipment.
And what stuff is that?
They don't know. They can't explain.
Exactly, they don't know. So what's the basis for claiming that it's something supernatural?
Well, what's the basis for not?
Because you don't know.
Something. But it's got to be something.
If you make a positive claim, you need evidence to back that up.
I'm not making a positive factual claim. I'm just saying, hey,
no, you actually are.
Person,
you're saying that there's something supernatural that's causing this electromagnetic thing.
No. I'm saying as a free will thinking person, I am choosing to believe in a free thinking society, freeing my mind to believe what I want to believe about that event and phenomenon.
Okay,
and I choose to attach a supernatural.
You know that belief is not a choice, right? You actually don't choose your beliefs.
How do you figure that?
You're either convinced or you're not. So something has convinced you that this is a supernatural event. So what is that?
Whatever I observed.
Okay, so seeing a TV show that you admitted there are lots of hoaxes going on these TV shows.
No, that was just an example because you were saying about we have equipment to detect electrical magnetic fields and other things like that, and I was just using that as an example to show you that there have been people using these electrical magnetic detection devices and detected presences of electromagnetic fields from sources they couldn't identify or verify.
How do you get from that to God, though? Because I haven't seen a show called God Hunters where they, the presence of God was tripping their equipment. So when you have this sense that tells you that there's a God, what does that look like to you, or what measurements does that do you?
Okay, hold on. Hold on a second. Let me just jump here for a second. I'll come back to that, but I want to ask you a question. You believe in the court of law and how the court of law operates in your country and in the world, right? In first world free thinking countries, right?
I'm not sure what you mean by believe in.
We have a court system and it works most of the time.
It works pretty well, but it has flaws.
You think that is okay. So what I'm saying by that, in the court of law, in all free world, first world countries, 3 witnesses are considered to be enough substantiating. 3 witnesses that witness the same thing are considered enough substantiating evidence to be considered fact.
No.
That's news to me. I've never heard that before.
No, that's not a criteria for anything in a court.
There can be 1 witness if there's enough evidence, or there can be 900.
Yeah. If 3 witnesses testify to seeing the same thing, but there's other evidence that refutes that testimony, then those 3 witnesses, that testimony has no value.
Okay, fine. But the point where I was trying to go with that is I'm assuming you've all heard of the AA 12-step programs in the USA, North America, and across the world.
Boy, this is like a gish gallop of topics here, but yes, we've heard of that.
Okay, so are you aware that there are millions and millions of people worldwide who claim that going through the 12-step program and coming to know a higher power creative being helped change their lives and are no longer addicted to drugs and alcohol?
I agree that there are people that claim that, yes.
Yeah, and are you also aware, because I'm one of those people, that's how I came to Christ. I grew up in an atheist family. And I was a non-believer, and I didn't see any substantiating proof to convince me that there's a real God. But I was at my bottom, and I tried everything in my life. I tried everything. I went to therapists, doctors, everything. And the only thing that was left was, hey, you know what? Why not give it a try? What do I got to lose?
Okay.
So I opened the door and said, okay. And guess what? As soon as I opened the door to God, as soon as I started to pray, as soon as I started to open my heart to it, I was changed. I don't have a drinking and drug problem anymore.
Well,
And that's the same thing that millions of people across the world who participate in these programs will say.
I congratulate you on your sobriety, but my question would still be, how do you know there's a God, and that's what made you sober?
Yeah, because from where I sit, it looks like you did all the hard work. You actually are responsible for your sobriety.
And you should give yourself more credit.
Yeah, you did it.
I do give myself credit. And you asked me if I called in before. Yeah, I called in before. I called in, and you guys said the same thing to me when I called in a few years ago. So you know what? Just to be completely scientific about it, see, God doesn't force himself on anybody. If you ask him to leave, he'll leave, and it's kind of like this. Imagine
Well, I think your God doesn't exist, so I agree. He doesn't force himself on anybody.
Okay, so you know I believe in God, so just entertain my thoughts. You're trying to understand why, so I'm telling you.
Okay.
So imagine you have digital cable, right? Imagine you have digital cable, right?
Okay.
I have it, so it's not much of an imagination.
And you decide that, hey, I can't afford digital cable anymore, so I need to call the cable company and downgrade to analog cable, basic cable.
Not an option anymore, but yeah, okay.
Sure, it's just a metaphor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Understand.
So that's what I did a few years ago when you guys said that to me, right? And I'm like, okay, let's see if I did this by myself, if there's some supernatural being helping me. So I'm going to kick that out of my life. And sure enough, I did that. So that's why I gave that analogy. If I had digital cable and it was like downgrading to analog cable, you know, because I can't afford to pay the tax, to pay the extra money to have digital cable. I can't afford the emotional tax of having a supernatural being that I may not know really exists because, hey, people are convincing me that maybe it doesn't, not real. And guess what? It's nothing to do with me because I did keep trying my hardest. I did keep doing everything that I was doing before and doing all the things I was doing. My life started to fall apart.
What do you mean by you kicked him out? Did you stop believing?
Yeah.
I find it hard that anyone could just turn it on or off like that at will.
Yeah, I did. I said, okay, I'm not going to go to church anymore. I'm not going to read my Bible anymore. I'm not going to pray anymore. I'm going to reboot my mind and become a completely scientific mind where I believed we evolved from monkeys and apes and, hey, there's nothing to all this.
Mark, I'm going to stop you here because I think you're being dishonest. Okay, because
I'm not.
What you're describing is not possible. You cannot reboot your mind and pretend you don't believe something. Something convinced you that a God is real. Maybe it was the fact that you became sober after so many years of trying, and that was a real emotional moment for you, and that convinced you that a God was real. You can't just discard that on a whim.
Yeah, you and many talks with my brother convinced me that God was not real. So I
don't believe that. I'm sorry, I think you're lying. You're either lying to us or you're lying to yourself because you can't do that. You can't just turn it off and pretend that you don't believe.
You know what, Jen? I acknowledge that, hey, maybe I self-sacrificed and self-sabotaged myself because I didn't feel as strong without having a presence in my life. I don't know. That is a possibility.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah?
Because you can stop going to church and going through the motions, but that doesn't really, I don't think it's really going to change your internal belief structure.
And not only that, but I mean, if your church is a part of your social network and you cut yourself off from that, then you know from having been through a recovery program that cutting yourself off from people that are helping you is actually going to jeopardize your sobriety. You know that.
Yeah, I guess, okay, it could be that. I don't know. All I know is when I said the first prayer and I was thought into my life, the reason, the presence I felt, the reason I felt it was real is because it felt like, and I'm sure you've heard this description before, it felt like love and joy and happiness and peace was a tangible thing, and I was wrapped up in a blanket, and there was a presence that was just there with me everywhere I went.
I have no doubt that people's religious beliefs often come with some kind of emotional response, especially when they engage in rituals like prayer. I have no doubt that produces an emotional response in people. You probably get a serious endorphin rush, and it feels good. I don't deny that happens to people.
Okay, I just got one last question for you, and then I'll let you go and move on to other callers.
Okay.
I would like for you, if you could, please, explain to me the C.S. Lewis phenomenon. He started out as a devout atheist who set out on a mission to disprove God to enlighten all humanity, and all he ended up doing is proving the existence of God to himself. He came to see that all the evidence and research he did, he came to see that the only logical explanation is there must be a God.
I don't know. How do you explain the Matt Dillahunty phenomenon? He set out to prove that his God was real because he wanted to enter the ministry. The more he studied, the more he realized that he couldn't continue to believe that a God was real, and he had to reject his former beliefs.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. One more thing. I just thought I had a list of notes I wanted to ask you about. I'm sure you're aware of what's widely accepted by the whole scientific community, including Stephen Hawking, as the string theory, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess it's called the string theory. I'm not sure it's actually formally a theory, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and it's considered the most accurate theory that describes everything that's in existence and what's going on and all of that.
Again, I'm not sure that that's actually a good description of it.
I'm not a physicist, so I don't.
Yeah, I'm not a cosmologist
I can't
either.
speak
So
to string theory with any kind of authority at all.
yeah. And frankly,
Okay,
whatever it says, whatever point you want to make about string theory, I assure you it has nothing to do with why I'm an atheist.
Actually, it does, because this is what I was trying to get to. I watched and studied and read a whole thing on string theory last night, and according to string theory, the seventh dimensional existence in reality, and all the scientists agree on this, that it is a hyperbrain.
Okay.
I'm not making that up.
I understand, but you know what? I got 3 callers on the line here, so I'm going to actually cut you off. If you want to continue this, you can email us.
Okay.
All right. So thanks for the
Bye.
call, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Great. He read a whole thing on it last night. Okay.
We should have gotten the title of that, but
Yeah. Well, maybe he'll email us and he'll give us the title of it. So,
Yeah.
so we have Patrick from Australia.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hi, Patrick.
Hey,
how are you?
guys?
we have some Australians in the audience with us today, too.
Oh, that's good. I'm actually a New Zealander, but I live in Australia.
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I was born an atheist, obviously. I've been an atheist my whole life, and just recently I thought I'd start reading the Bible. And after reading parts of the Bible, it's sort of changed my mind. It's changed my perspective. But I'd like to tell you how it's changed my perspective. I think I've gone from being an atheist to an anti-theist.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So when you say anti-theist, do you mean you're convinced that there is no God, or do you mean like you're against?
I think it's more that I'm against what a lot of it stands for, I guess, because I've had a lot of it, when I was obviously a lot younger and couldn't really think for myself, I had a lot of it forced upon me, but that's when I made my mind up to think, this isn't really working for me. But as I've read that Bible, I just thought, how can anyone believe it? But secondly, how can anyone feel that the God of that Bible is in any way a moral being?
Yeah.
That's I think, what I don't like anymore.
Yeah, and you know, I think that a lot of Christians did what I did when I was still a Christian, and that is that they look at the Bible as like a collection of a lot of metaphors, and
Yes.
and you know, and that most of it's not to be taken literally. And if you look at the way the Jews interpret a lot of what we call the Old Testament, they agree that most of these are not to be taken literally. But there are the biblical literalists that think that every single word in the Bible is absolutely true, and it can be nothing but the truth. And so for me, it wasn't so much what was in the Bible as the people that were interpreting the Bible that kind of made me an anti-theist.
Sure. Okay.
And so, I still have friends who are liberal Christians who don't take it literally, and we disagree obviously on the existence of a God, but I don't worry about them killing somebody that has a religious disagreement with them, or them sending their gay kid off to some conversion camp or something. Yeah. But I still think they're providing political cover for the more extreme elements. So.
Okay, and I mean, I guess what I wanted to also get at is, obviously, well, especially in New Zealand, where I was originally from, but even in Australia, there isn't that real push for creationism to be introduced into schools.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really been on my radar, per se, but after watching a lot of debates on YouTube, and YouTube is, I think, going to be the death of religion, but anyway, after watching lots of debates, obviously there's the idea that it is creeping into American schools. And that is a concern, and that's why I think my perspective is slowly going that way as well.
Yeah, and it's something that we have to be vigilant about here, but in terms of school systems formally adopting that as a curriculum, at least public school systems, every time the creationists have tried to get it into a public school curriculum, they have lost, and they have lost big time. This is not you could interpret this as a minor slap, or we just need to tweak the curriculum. It was a massive smackdown every time. So it's unconstitutional, and not even a little bit. It's not a gray area at all. So they keep trying, especially here in Texas.
Yeah, they're going to keep trying, and we're going to have to keep arguing it.
Yeah. So it's definitely something we have to remain vigilant about, but it's not currently part of the curriculum.
Okay, that's a good thing. But probably one last thing. Reading the Bible, and obviously Ken Ham answers in Genesis and whatnot. With Genesis, there's a section in there where there's a mention of us. Genesis 1:26, to let us make man in our image.
Right.
And has become like one of us. And I've seen all these explanations of, it's because he's talking about the Holy Trinity, but that hasn't even been introduced yet. So that's such a huge thing to talk about, but no one seems to. Right.
Yeah, and not only that, but that is actually a Jewish text. And so if you want the correct interpretation of that, you really should be talking to a rabbi. And and if you talk to a rabbi, they'll tell you that the Trinity is not part of Jewish theology at all. So
exactly.
That whole they were talking about the Trinity. That's not true. They were actually talking about, I guess the pantheon that existed in that area at the time. And I guess Tracy did a show long ago on those gods. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting.
That's one of those cases where they try to retrofit some text into something that they decided later and said, here, see, they're talking about the Trinity. Well, no, not really.
Yeah.
But
I just want to make one last point, if I can. The last guy, Mark, the caller from Canada, he started off saying he was a creationist, but then he said he believed in a free-thinking society.
Yeah.
Was that the definition of irony going on right there, or what?
Could be.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks for the call.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, there's some horrible stuff in the Bible, and I think most Christians deal with it by just not taking it literally.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, and saying, well, times were different then. And I've heard a lot of excuses.
Yeah.
But, there are people out there who think that when it says you should kill a witch or you should kill a homosexual, that's really true. And if only the government would let them do that, we would have a great society. And that's scary.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's talk to Anthony in Washington, D.C.
Hey, guys. I'm a big fan of the show. I'm a first-time caller, and I'm currently a year into my atheism, and this show is, a big part of that transition. So I just wanted to say I'm a big fan, and thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, welcome to Reason. Thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on a couple of things, and it is in relation to what happened in France, I guess a week or so ago, with the murders, and it's crazy, and just to see that type of evil manifest in the world, and so what was really fascinating to me was the response to some of those issues, because there seemed to be two trains of thought, right? And the first train of thought, which is what I agree with, the magazine or the publication, they put out material that's offensive, right?
Right.
And you have people who feel like, so what if it's offensive? People get offended every day.
Right. Well, and the thing is,
if you don't,
yeah, that magazine, they put out stuff that's provocative. Whether people consider it offensive or not, that's kind of an individual interpretation, and they can't make that interpretation for people. So I think that, they deliberately put out provocative stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what's been sort of, I guess it's troubling in a way, was the other side of the coin, because I've seen a lot of people on television sort of hint, including the Pope, sort of hint that, pretty much almost everybody that I've seen react to this condemns the murders, but there's a whisper of, yeah, but they shouldn't have put out those publications because they offended a lot of people.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did see something about the Pope said that you can't criticize other people's religion or their faith or whatever. And
yeah, and he also made a comment about, and I think his point was that you can't criticize it because it's going to offend a lot of people. And they said something about, like, if you said something about my mom, I think he was probably joking, but a punch awaits you or something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I definitely feel like if you. It really shouldn't matter if it offends a lot of people. If you like it, buy the magazine. If it doesn't, you shouldn't, But I just thought that it was ironic because I'm a former Christian, right?
Yeah. And
I went to a church in the South. And some of the things that were said about atheists were really offensive. Mm-hmm. Super offensive, calling us fools, saying that we're going to burn in a lake of fire forever. Yeah. Everything, even going as far as calling atheists evil, Yep. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on just like the irony of that.
Yeah, it's really hypocritical. I agree. And I would like to see the Pope come out and say strongly that it's not okay to walk into office buildings and gun people down, rather than you shouldn't mock people's religion.
Yeah.
We have a lot of mockery that goes on in this country. You turn on late night TV and Jon Stewart or lots of people are mocking everybody, and we don't see people retaliating to that degree, and criticizing Jon Stewart for being mocking.
Yeah, and one of the things in U.S. law in particular, I can't speak for other sources of law, but I think for probably most of the developed world, you can't invite an assault by speech alone. So if I'm saying really horrible, vile things, that doesn't justify somebody coming up and punching me in the face, even if I'm insulting their mother, So, this idea that the publishers of a magazine brought it on themselves because they criticized someone's religion, that's a blaming the victim attitude.
Yeah.
That is basically excusing the behavior of these guys who, without any kind of reasonable provocation at all, walked into a magazine office and started shooting people for no reason, other than, I'm pissed off. You insulted my non-existent God. And yeah, I hope that Charlie Hebdo continues to publish very provocative magazines. I hope this doesn't stop them.
Yeah, I personally, I feel like it was a bit cowardly, but.
Well, I don't even think it's cowardly, because you can't be a coward and walk in, and start shooting people. I mean, certainly you could argue that there was an act of cowardice in that they knew that the people there wouldn't be armed and couldn't retaliate in kind. But I mean, I think that,
well, I meant cowardly in the, just the people's response who were sort of hinting, almost blaming the victim, you know?
Yeah, certainly, yeah, especially the Pope. I mean,
Yeah.
he turns around and says that marriage equality is somehow, you know, a dire threat to the family. Well, I'm deeply offended by that, but I don't want to shoot the guy, you know.
Absolutely. So just to point out a few things that I feel like we're all offended by. Westboro Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
They say the craziest things. They have these signs that say God hates fags. They, you know, I'm African American, right? And currently, to this day, there's still active KKK
Right.
branches around the country. You know, there are neo-Nazi factions around the U.S. And,
Right.
you know, a lot of them put out publications. A lot of them have, you know, presence that you can see if you just get on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as offensive as it is, unless they actually take their words and transition it into action,
Yeah.
hey, you know, we all should have the right to say and have opinions without having to fear for our lives.
Have you seen the Molly Ivins story about the Klan rally here in Austin?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so this was like 20-something years ago, I think. And so there aren't enough Klans members in Austin to have a good Klan rally, so they had to import them from, I think, Waco. So they bust them in from Waco. And home of a Baptist university, I might add. Anyway, and so when the Klan started their march down Congress Avenue, the people in Austin lined the streets of Congress Avenue, and as the Klan marched by, they turned around and mooned them. And as Molly Ivins commented, it was kind of like the wave going down Austin, Congress Avenue in Austin. So, yeah. So, you know, I think that sort of response is very appropriate for that kind of activity.
I agree. Well, that's all I called in for, and I just wanted to. I appreciate your feedback and your comments. Before I leave, I just wanted to kind of say that, I mean, my opinion is when it comes to things like this, you know, there are going to be people who say things that are offensive, but then there are things that are really, really distasteful and ugly, like, you know, Westboro Baptist Church and the KKK. Mm-hmm. But if you look at a lot of things today and compare them to where they were 10, 20 years ago, I feel like things are getting better, you know. And if you look at the way things are today compared to 50 years ago, I think that things are getting better. And I feel like as a humanity, we're moving more towards compassion. And I feel like the compassionate side of our humanity is sort of weeding out a lot of the you know, more barbaric and I don't know how to put it, but a lot of things that were acceptable in the past are just not acceptable today, and I think the trend is going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think in general that's true, and I think a lot of it is the result of exposing some of the bad behavior and having many people stand up and say, you know what, that's really horrible. Because I think a lot of times bad behavior seemed to be the norm because people said things or did things that were awful, and no one criticized it.
Yeah.
And so by putting this out there and letting people see really how bad some things are, then you get people stepping up and saying, you know, that's really not okay.
Yeah, even like, as you said, 50 years ago, the stuff that the Klan was saying was a lot more mainstream and acceptable to society, and now it's not.
Yeah. Even 20 years ago, I mean, you know, Steve Scalise, the guy in Congress who apparently spoke at some kind of
Stormfront or one of those white supremacy groups.
It's a white supremacist group, and you know, he's taken a lot of heat from that now. And I'm sure that back then, that was considered perfectly mainstream.
Yeah.
At least in his circles. So
yeah. I agree. I'm optimistic too, and I think, and a lot of that has to do with the just pervasiveness of social media, and people are a lot more familiar with what's going on. And mockery has its place, I think.
Yeah.
I think when you mock the Westboro Baptist Church and people see other people mocking them, then it becomes what they're doing becomes a lot less acceptable to any segment of society. So we should be getting more mockery.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because we actually get email from people saying, oh, you guys shouldn't mock people's religion. You're turning people off. The people that might convert to atheism, they won't now because you mocked their beliefs. And I completely disagree with that. And we've got plenty of emails from people that are former Christians who deconverted because of watching our show that kind of refute that claim.
I'm one of them, actually. It's funny that you
cool.
said that, because the thing that actually got me to convert was Bill Maher's documentary Religulous.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the documentary, and I hopped online immediately and tried to debunk a bunch of the claims. The one that did it for me was Horus, right, and all the similarities between his story and Jesus' story. And
I'd be careful
I thought
with that.
it was. Yeah, so there were a few things, and that was one of them. And I hopped online, and I thought there was going to be an awesome explanation to why there's so many similarities, and I just wasn't able to find those. And on the other hand, what I found was a bunch of religious people basically BSing, and that sort of catapulted the transition to realizing it was all BS. So. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate your feedback, and I think it was a good conversation. And just keep doing the great work that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate the call.
Thanks.
Cool. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, next, let's see, we've had Chad on the line for a while, so let's go to Chad in Atlanta.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hey,
Good,
Chad,
how are you?
I'm doing well. I wanted to call in because about 4 years ago, I kind of started my deconversion process growing up Christian, charismatic, kind of fundamentalist. And I feel like I was kind of deconverting into more of a liberal Christian, like you were talking about earlier. But I found myself over the past kind of 6 months or so finding myself in more of the I don't know camp, even with my beliefs of just kind of trying to maintain that liberal Christian kind of faith. I just found myself gravitating to the I don't know camp. And one question that I had that my wife and we talk about often is the belief in reincarnation. I know that I've read different articles where they talk about young children as early as 18-month-old talking about past life experiences that they could not have knowledge of, and having kind of these different claims and different stories where it just leads me to wonder, and I personally, I like the idea of kind of recycling just for my own kind of peace of mind. And I've listened to a lot of your podcasts over the past kind of 2 or 3 weeks. Honestly, I've been plowing through them. But I wanted to kind of get your perspective on, just an atheist perspective on the idea of reincarnation.
Well, I don't think we would ever claim to speak for atheists in general. We can speak for ourselves.
Sure, absolutely. Well, then your perspective. Thank you.
My perspective is, I would love to think that reincarnation is real. As an atheist, or as a skeptic, I should say, I'm not satisfied with the evidence that we have so far that reincarnation really happens. I've heard of some of the anecdotal stories, and I'm not sure how well they hold up under scrutiny. But I'm always comfortable with I don't know until I get more evidence. So I don't think I don't know is a bad place to be. I think that's kind of the default place to be, and then you kind of see what the evidence is, and you're either convinced of something or you're not. So
Okay.
So yeah, I don't see a whole lot of evidence for reincarnation. I think that we'd have a lot more of those stories if there was something to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm unconvinced as well.
Okay. Okay, well, I appreciate that. I do have another question, if that's okay.
Okay.
Because I just was curious over the reincarnation. Another thing that I find myself, because I'm not like anti-gay or and like anti-different people groups and everything, and I find I get in conversations with people that are trying to convince me how I need to like accept God's word on hating homosexuals and not approving of them and everything, and as well as hell. Like they definitely want hell. And one of the things that I feel like I get brought up a lot is the idea of free will. And I always end up kind of talking to him about how, like, I feel like it's not a choice. It's an ultimatum that you're laying out, and you can't make a free will choice with an ultimatum kind of setup. But one of the questions that I'm wondering is that I feel like free will is kind of a vague term where it's just like we're free to choose, but really it's kind of free to choose. I feel like sometimes just according to your own experience, that could be very tainting the free will. And I heard in the previous podcast where, I don't remember who said this, but they were talking about how they didn't believe that free will even existed. And I was just curious on your perspective, because I'd love to kind of flesh it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the free will that most of the Christians are talking about doesn't actually exist, as in you can choose your beliefs, because you actually can't. You're either convinced or you're not. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if somebody said, okay, you have to be a Christian or I'm going to kill you, I'd be on my knees praying like crazy, but I wouldn't believe,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Assuming they had the means to do it and they were, directly threatening my life. And somebody's going to misquote that and say, oh, see, Jen would convert if
Do you guys believe in free will, like in any form of a concept?
Well, I mean, in the sense that, I guess I can choose to do something or not. Not the type of free will that Christians are talking about, where you could absolutely choose anything. I don't think any choice is available to you. And I think that a lot of people, when they talk about a freely chosen, decision, you're actually already limited to what you can choose by the circumstances that you're in. So it's not like you could completely shift gears and make a totally different choice. So I'm probably rambling too much here, but basically, in order for me to make a completely different choice about my beliefs, I would have to not know a whole bunch of stuff that I know.
Like, I agree, because I feel like once my mind's been opened, I can't kind of close it again. Is there anything that you would suggest when talking to people where, because I've been really just talking to them and just saying, it's not a choice, it's an ultimatum when you have this kind of equation that you're setting in front of people. It can't possibly be a choice.
Yeah, if somebody holds a gun to your head and says, give me your wallet, it's not really a choice that you have, a free choice to give them your wallet. It's a forced choice. Mm-hmm. But there's another aspect of free will that people who like philosophy tend to get into, and that's like I can choose what I want to have for breakfast. But some people will claim your brain is physical. It's a free choice is an illusion. Your brain, the way your brain functions has predetermined that you're going to pick cornflakes instead of scrambled eggs, and so it's not really free will. It's a physical process that your brain is doing. I can accept that and still say if that's true, we have the illusion of free will. It's still free will from our perspective.
It still feels like you're making a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I tend not to get too mired into those things, because that can be a rabbit hole. But when it comes to something you're going to accept as true or not, you have to be convinced.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your podcast. It's been an enjoyable find for me over the past few weeks, and I look forward to continuing to listen to you guys.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care.
You too.
Okay, so let's take Kieran in London next.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Kieran.
How's it going?
Good.
Great.
So we're down to about 4 minutes and 20 seconds here, so sorry to cut you off, but you got a lot.
All right, so basically, all I want to do is ask you about what the current state is for Islamophobia in the atheist community, because at the moment I feel like there's a lot of confusion, because there's a lot of deflection in the Islamic community from any criticism of Islam, and they label it as Islamophobia, and thereby intolerant and therefore racism in some way. And I feel like the left is kind of playing into this narrative and helping these people into avoiding any criticism of their religion. So I'd just like to see what your point of view is on that.
It's pretty much the same as my feeling that, the Pope thinks that religion's above criticism. Ideas are not worthy of any kind of protection from criticism. And so if I criticize Islam, if I criticize the actions of specific Muslims, especially those who think their God tells them to walk into a magazine headquarters and start shooting people, that's not Islamophobia. That's a legitimate criticism of what they do. And if that's motivated by their religious beliefs, then I'm also going to criticize those religious beliefs.
Well, the problem is so many people don't criticize their religious beliefs.
Yeah.
They label it as political or geosocial, some other aspect of this, and they are looking for excuses to put into these terrorist mouths that they're not asking for. And the fundamental basis is it is because of religion, but the so many people in the media, at least in Britain, I don't know what the situation is in America, but they're almost scared of calling it Islamic extremism. Yeah.
I'm okay with calling it Islamic extremism, but we have to be careful, I think, not to paint with too broad a brush. We were talking about the Westboro Baptist Church earlier, and how they hold a placard saying God hates fags, and they picket people who have lost their child to murder, and I would call that an extreme form of Christianity, and it's also fed by their belief in what they read in the Bible. So I think
but I mean the deaths caused by people committing terrorist atrocities in the name of Christianity is but a drop in the ocean compared to the destruction wrought out by Islamic motivated actions throughout the world. It's ridiculous. It's nothing in comparison to what Islam is causing.
Actually, in the U.S., mostly it's been Christian terrorists who've done, the most in terms of, in terms of the number of attacks. It's been Christian terrorists who've done it.
Yeah,
and nothing in compared.
I think we would all agree there's a lot of, especially in the U.S., Muslims who are peaceful, and kind of we talked earlier about Christians who have a really liberal attitude that the scriptures aren't to be taken literally. I think there's a lot of Muslims, especially in this country, who feel the same way about the Quran. So
yeah.
No, but the moderate Islam community are part of the problem as much as anything else. The fact that they are the fact that they are deflecting any criticism of their religion.
Hey, Kieran, they're rolling credits. We got to go. Thanks for the call, and we agree. Thanks.
Sorry to cut you off, but we're out of time.
We actually agree that moderates are a problem.